The Eye of the King, unveiling the Atlantean ghost in the sands of Mauritania. The wind in the Adrar Plateau does not just blow, it whispers. It carries with it the silica dust of eons, grinding against the bedrock of West Africa, erasing footsteps, burying bones, and perhaps hiding the greatest secret of human civilization. For 2,000 years, humanity has looked to the oceans. We have scanned the floor of the Atlantic, probed the Mediterranean, and even theorized about Antarctica, all in search of a ghost. We were looking for a city of rings, a marvel of engineering, a civilization destroyed by water in a single day and night of misfortune. We were looking for Atlantis. But while we gazed into the deep blue abyss, the truth might have been staring back at us from space, etched into the golden skin of the Sahara Desert. This is not a story of a sunken ship or a mythical underwater kingdom. This is the story of the Richat Structure, the Eye of the Sahara, and the terrifying possibility that we have walked past the ruins of Atlantis for centuries, mistaking its bleached bones for a natural geological quirk. The view from the heavens. The story begins not with an archaeologist's trowel, but with a view from the heavens. When the Gemini astronauts first orbited our planet in the 1960s, they were tasked with taking photographs of Earth's terrain. As they passed over the vast, featureless expanse of the Sahara Desert in Mauritania, something caught their eye. It was not a dune, nor a mountain range. It was a bullseye, distinct, undeniable, and massive. A series of perfect concentric circles lay stamped into the desert floor. It looked like a giant ammonite fossil, or the splash mark of a colossal drop of water frozen in stone. They called it the Richat Structure. For decades, geologists dismissed it as an impact crater, the scar of an ancient asteroid. But there was no shocked quartz, no evidence of a hypervelocity impact. Later, they decided it was a dome of magma that had uplifted the Earth and then collapsed, eroded by wind and water over millions of years. While the geologists argued over tectonic plates and magma chambers, a different group of scholars began to look at the Richat Structure with a copy of an ancient text in their hands. They were reading the dialogues of Plato, specifically the Critias and the Timaeus, written around 360 BC. As they read Plato's specific, almost bureaucratic description of the lost capital of Atlantis, and then looked down at the satellite imagery of the Richat Structure, a chill began to creep up their spines. The numbers matched, the geometry matched, the geography matched. The checklist of the philosopher Plato was not writing a fairy tale. He claimed the story was passed down from Solon, a Greek statesman who had visited Egypt. The Egyptian priests of Sais told Solon that the Greeks were children in memory, forgetting their own history due to cataclysms. They spoke of a great empire that existed 9,000 years before Solon's time. Let us walk through the city Plato described and overlay it upon the satellite map of Mauritania. Plato wrote that the capital city of Atlantis was composed of concentric rings of water and land. Specifically, he mentioned 2 rings of land and 3 rings of water surrounding a central island. If you look at the Richat Structure today, despite the erosion of 10,000 years, the skeletal remains of this geometry are undeniable. The high ridges of the structure represent the rings of land, and the deep, sandy valleys between them represent where the water once flowed. But geometry is common in nature. Coincidence is possible. It is the dimensions that turn coincidence into evidence. Plato was very specific about measurements. He stated the diameter of the city was 127 stadia. When converted to modern measurements, this is approximately 23 to 24 kilometers. When we measure the outer circle of the Richat Structure, It falls exactly within this range. The precision is unnerving. The description continues. Plato mentioned that the city was sheltered by mountains to the north. Mountains that were high, beautiful, and rich in minerals. Look to the north of the Richat Structure today. There stands a high chain of mountains, exactly as described, shielding the structure from the northern winds. Plato then said that to the south, the city opened up to a vast oblong plain. South of the Richat, the landscape flattens out into a long, rectangular corridor of sand that stretches toward the sea. The coincidences compound. The Egyptian priests told Solon that the builders of Atlantis used stones of 3 colors: black, white, and red. They quarried these stones from the center island and the zones of the rings. Today, if you walk the dusty ridges of the Eye of the Sahara, you will find exactly these geological compositions. Iron-rich black stones, oxidized red rock, and pale white calcite lie scattered across the terrain. The very building blocks of the legend are lying on the ground, waiting for a mason who will never return. The water in the wasteland. The greatest counter-argument to the Sahara theory is the environment. Atlantis was a maritime power. It was an island empire. How could it be located in one of the driest places on Earth? To understand this, we must wind back the clock. We must forget the Sahara we know today, the endless ocean of sand and death. We must return to the era of the Green Sahara. Climatological evidence confirms that roughly 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, North Africa was lush. It was a savanna teeming with life, massive river systems, and huge lakes. It was a place where hippos and giraffes roamed where now only scorpions survive. During this time, the Timaeus River was a massive waterway. Evidence suggests that a great river flowed from the Atlas Mountains, feeding into the area of the Richat and potentially connecting it to the Atlantic Ocean to the west. Plato explicitly mentioned that the city had an abundance of water, both cold and hot springs, which the inhabitants used for bathing and agriculture. This seems impossible in the desert, yet the geology of the Richat Structure offers a smoking gun. Hydrogeologists have identified deep underground aquifers beneath the structure. Furthermore, the volcanic nature of the original formation suggests that geothermal activity would have been present, providing the hot springs Plato described. The plumbing of Atlantis is still there, hidden beneath the bedrock, the cataclysm and the mud. The end of Atlantis was violent. Plato wrote that in a single day and night of misfortune, the island disappeared into the depths of the sea. He noted that after the destruction, the ocean in that area became impassable and impenetrable because of the quantity of mud and shoals left by the sunken island. If Atlantis sank into the middle of the deep Atlantic Ocean, why would there be mud? Deep ocean sinking creates a void, not a mud bank. However, if Atlantis was destroyed by a massive tsunami or a rapid rise in sea level that flooded the Sahara, the receding waters would leave behind exactly what Plato described: a chaotic, muddy, impassable wasteland. This aligns with the younger Dryas theory. Around 12,800 years ago, the Earth underwent a violent climate shift, likely caused by a comet impact or solar outburst. Ice caps melted rapidly. Sea levels surged. A massive wave of water could have swept across the low-lying plains of West Africa, slamming into the Richat Structure, obliterating the civilization, and dragging the debris out to sea. When you look at the satellite imagery of the western side of the Sahara, near the Richat, you can see the scars of water. Massive striations in the sand look like the result of a colossal flood, dragging millions of tons of material westward into the Atlantic. The Eye of the Sahara looks like it was scrubbed clean by the hand of a vengeful god. The king of the West. Even the names whisper the truth to us. The first king of Atlantis was named Atlas. He was the son of Poseidon. The ocean is named after him, the Atlantic. But where does the name Atlas appear on land? It appears in the mountains to the north of the Sahara, the Atlas Mountains. The local tribes of Mauritania have a history that predates the modern Arab influence. There are legends of a king who ruled the West, a rich civilization that had mastered the waters. The very map of Herodotus, drawn centuries before the modern discovery of the Americas, places Atlantis in the exact region of North Africa where the Richat Structure sits. We have spent centuries assuming that when Plato said, "In front of the pillars of Hercules, the Strait of Gibraltar," he meant strictly in the ocean. But if you sail through the pillars and hug the coast of Africa, heading south, you arrive at the shores of Mauritania. If the sea levels were higher or if the land was lower, the Richat would have been an island surrounded by the concentric rings of water connected to the ocean by a channel, exactly as the texts describe. The silence of the artifact's skeptics will ask, where is the gold? Where are the statues? Where are the bones? If a civilization is destroyed by a wall of water moving at hundreds of miles per hour, very little remains. The structures are pulverized. The bodies are washed away or buried under hundreds of feet of mud, which eventually turns to stone or sand. Furthermore, 10,000 years is a long time. Metal corrodes, wood rots, stone erodes. Yet, there are anomalies. Throughout the Sahara, explorers have found spheres of stone that seem too perfect to be natural. There are arrowheads and tools scattered in the desolation that speak of a dense population. And perhaps most damning of all is the salt. The terrain around the Richat is covered in white salt crusts. Salt comes from the sea. Why is the heart of the desert covered in the residue of the ocean? It is the fingerprint of the flood that drowned the city. A shift in perspective. Accepting the Richat structure as Atlantis requires a shift in our understanding of history. It demands that we accept that human civilization was advanced far earlier than we believe. It demands we accept that the geography of our planet is not static, that green paradises can become living hells, and that the ocean can swallow continents and retreat, leaving only silence. The eye of the Sahara stares up at the cosmos, unblinking. It has watched the Green Sahara turn to dust. It has watched the tribes migrate and forget. It has watched the modern world fly over it, looking for answers in the dark trenches of the ocean, while the answer lay burning in the sun. Plato described a city of alternating rings of water and land. He described the mountains to the north, the plain to the south, the red, white, and black rocks, and the hot and cold springs. He gave us a map, and we ignored it because we could not believe the terrain could change so drastically. But the terrain does change. The story of Atlantis may not be a story of a magical underwater city. It may be a cautionary tale of a very real, very human civilization that thrived in a green paradise, only to be wiped out by the volatile forces of our planet. As the sun sets over the Adrar Plateau, casting long shadows over the concentric ridges of the Richat, one can almost hear the bustle of a market, the splash of oars in the ringed canals, and the prayers of a people who did not know that the sky was about to fall. The lost city is not lost. It is merely forgotten, buried not under the waves, but under the sands of time, waiting for us to wipe the dust from our eyes and finally see what has been there all along.
Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this video, learned something new, or simply want to see more content like this, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support truly helps the channel grow and reach more people. And if you have thoughts or ideas you'd like to share, feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next video.